Hello, it's Adrian from Welshot again here, and in this video we're going to show you how to set up and understand studio lights. Now we've set up the one light to light up our model, and I'm quite happy with the look of that particular one. We're going to fill in some shadow areas. Now there's two ways of doing that. You can either use a reflector or we can use a second light, which I've got over here now ready to go. This is the back of a studio light, one that we're going to be using today. This is a Pixar Pro lamp, and I'll run through the controls quite quickly. First of all, we have the on-off switch, which is the mains power switch, which controls everything. Then we have the setting control, which controls the volume, or the power switch as I call it there. And we have the test button at the end, which fires the lamp to test it to make sure that everything's working okay and blinding your model. Sorry, Rachel. The next one along, we have a modelling lamp switch, which is what controls the bulb. The modelling lamp basically is a bulb which gives you the ability to see your shot before you take the picture. The next one along is a buzz button, which does exactly what it says on the tin. When you fire the test button, it buzzes to tell you it's ready to fire the next shot. The next one we have is a slave mode button, but today we're not going to be using that one because we're going to be using the actual triggers which came with the lights to fire the units themselves. The button on the end here gives you the ability to adjust your power and to fire the unit itself from the top of your camera. In other words, this is the trigger which talks to the unit itself. And that's basically the whole unit. So simple, much easier than a complicated flash gun these days which comes with your camera. Once I've got the light in position, I'm going to pick up I've got my camera in my hand, I've set the light from the trigger unit up to 1/4 power, which is my starting point, and I'm going to use this now just to take a shot of our model, Rachel. So, here we go, I've got a setting of 200 ISO, I'm on f8, and I'm on 1/4 power. My shutter speed is on 200th of a second. Okay, Rachel, just look straight down the lens. As a first shot, which I'm looking at now in the back of the camera, that's not a bad exposure actually. The reason I use the brolly is to give a nice wide sweep of light, because the brolly tends to throw the light out across the whole scene, and from looking at the picture there, it seems to have done exactly what I wanted it to do. Brolly's a very affordable modifier, and this can cost you anything from a tenner upwards, so much more affordable than say a softbox, which we will try in a little while. So if I wanted to modify this exposure a little bit, just make it a little bit more moody, what I can do is to turn the power down just a little bit. Now I've got two means of doing this. Now I can either turn the power down of the light, or I can adjust the aperture on the lens itself. Now at the moment I'm taking at the aperture of f8, so if I go to f11, and what I will do then is adjust the aperture to a smaller aperture, so it's going to make the whole picture look a little bit darker. So let's just take an exposure of that. So now we have a little bit more of a moody looking shot. Now we've tried the brolly on a couple of exposures of Rachel, we're going to swap it for a softbox. Now the softbox will give us a bit more control over the light. Instead of throwing the light in all directions, the softbox, which I have here, will throw it in only one direction, which is directly towards the model. The softbox, as you can see, gives a nice round shape of light as well, so it's quite a natural looking light. If there are any catch lights in the eyes, hopefully this should give you a nice circular catch light, which looks very much like the sun. Whereas the brolly, you might find if you look really close, you'll get the little spars and things from the brolly in the eyes. A quick tip if you're changing modifiers on your lights, if you have a modifier like I've got here, a softbox, which is fairly heavy to lift and fit onto the front of the box, don't do it like a lot of people do. Lift the softbox and fit it on here. Do like I do. Take the light off the stand and fit the light into the softbox, give it a click and pick the whole thing up and fit it to the light stand. That way there's less damage to the bulbs and the tubes at the business end of the lights. So we'll fit this back in here, turn the back on, we'll leave the power the same as it was before, and we'll just lift this light up. Now we've got these two modifiers along side by side, you can see the difference in them. This one has like a casing around the outside of it which stops the light going out into all directions. This will only come straight forward, whereas the Broly is just a white piece of material on a stick basically, and it will let the light go in lots of different directions. So it's a really cheap modifier, it works very well, it's a bit less controllable than a softbox, and this is why I prefer the softbox many times to a Broly. I'm keeping the settings on the camera the same as I had on the umbrella, but this time we're going to be using the softbox to give us a different look. So settings the same, looking straight towards Rachel again, the same poses, and this time we've got a more moody look straight away because the light is going directly on Rachel and a lot less onto the background. Here we can see the two images I've just taken of Rachel, virtually side by side. This one was taken with the umbrella and it's nicely lit, but what you can see is that a lot of the background is actually lit up as well as Rachel. Now with the second shot, you can see it's a more moody looking shot. Rachel's been lit up quite nicely, but the background is less light on the background itself because the light is turned slightly away from her, and the light is directional, much more directional than the Broly. It's a personal preference, whichever one you prefer actually, but I myself always like the moody shots, and especially you can turn it black and white as well, it'll make it look even more moody. Right, now we've got the second light set up. This one has got another softbox on it, slightly smaller softbox than on the other side, but this will now fill in this side of Rachel, whereas we had a bit of a shadow area on Rachel's left hand side, which is my right side. This will fill in those shadow areas now. You could use a reflector like I've said, but I like to use a light if it's at all possible because you can do this single-handedly. I've set up this light to be one stop less in power, that's one f-stop less in power than the one on the other side. So this one is my main light, this is my fill light, so it's one stop less. Communication between model and photographer is essential. Once you've got a shot that you're quite happy with, show it to your model, therefore they can either get approval from your model, or if maybe there's a way which they can help you to get a better shot, that's always a good thing. By adding the second light, you can see from the actual image itself that I've taken that has lit in both sides of the face fairly evenly, but I did say I'd use one stop less on this side to take the image, so this side is slightly less powerful than the one on my left. This has also given me a little bit of shadow on the side, so it's giving a bit of depth to the picture, so it's not just completely flat looking. I like that sort of look myself in most of my images, but it depends on the individual how you like your pictures to look, but that's the way I like them, one stop less than the other side. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. If you've enjoyed this video and you've learnt a few little hints and tips, it's been well worth.
You know where you went wrong though, you set yourself up,
yeah. If you've enjoyed this video,
don't say it.
Okay. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have done and learnt a few tips.
I don't know.
Yeah. I'm gonna laugh in a minute. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you don't forget, there's no right or wrong way of taking your images. You get them to look the way that you want them to look. So experiment with your settings. Don't just do one picture. Take a look. Take a few. Take a load. Whilst you've got the stuff set up, it doesn't cost you any more, does it? But